So, welcome to the Chaos Cast. We're glad you're here. We're going to be doing a Chaos Cast special today, so we hope you enjoy that. Today's topic, I want to talk about women and the apocalypse. Now, recently there has been a video, and I searched everywhere for it. Maybe I'll be able to find it before I edit this video, but it was of a mother pushing a stroller down the road, and the caption said, "Drug addict steals a baby from a stroller." And this video, this young lady, she's probably a buck 25, if that. She's a little old lady, a little young lady. But the man walks up. He's acting kind of erratic, and then he grabs the baby out of one of those old collapsible umbrella strollers. The mother goes to try and stop him, and he grabs her by the hair of the head and slams her on the ground. So he grabs the baby and he's leaving with it. She's trying to fight him, and he's pushing her to the ground. He's just slinging around like a rag doll. And then we have a couple gentlemen in the community that come up and stop him. She tries to go, I believe, once more and get the baby, and is successful while these men stop this guy. Now, this is reality. Now, I'm not talking about, these women that are super heavy lifters. They take a lot of martial arts classes, which we will delve into that to a degree. But women in the apocalypse, there was this thing that came up a couple years back amongst prep talkers, TikTok prepping community. And, there were a number of us that talked about, if you were a woman in a disaster scenario, trying to get out of a large city, trying to get out of a dangerous area. And it pertained basically to, hiding your femininity, because, feminism and girl power is not going to matter in a chaotic situation. I mean, now you may be able to take on a man head on, but I'm talking to the average woman. Maybe you got a few children. You're trying to escape a disaster. Let's say it's like a Katrina type scenario, and you're having to evacuate a city, and there is no law. And we were going along the lines hiding the femininity. You put on a cap. You don't have a big bulky bag. You don't have anything flashy. You're just trying to make yourself as small or less appealing of a target as you can. And this goes for men that just are not physically able to take on people that would prey upon others. And so then we had a woman. She was part of our prepping community. She came in and made a video, and she was outraged by what we were saying, and claimed that was just another example of men degrading women. It was just another example of men being anti-woman and this traditional gender norms narrative. And now I did respond to it. It was basically what I said. This doesn't just apply to women. This applies to anybody that's trying to avoid attack by people that feel like they can overpower you. Which, a woman that's a buck 25 and you have a man that's 250, there are situations where she can get out, but in most of them, if she's not got any training, she don't want to even get into that altercation, because kicking a man in his genitals is not going to always get her out of that. And I made that response. We're talking about making yourself look more like something they don't want, and that refers to people that would attack. And that doesn't just go in hiding femininity. And why we say hide femininity, because if you have these individuals and they have no fear of the law and they want a beautiful woman, you're not just dealing with one man. You might be dealing with a group of men, because there have been gang rapes that have been reported in the news. This is a thing. We know this is a thing. And that is what we were getting at. We weren't being anti-feminist, anti-woman, anti-strong woman, or nothing. But I do believe in it with my faith, that I have. I believe a man is to protect his family. He's to protect his wife. Now, will the woman help him in that? Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of women that shot people that were attacking their husbands with weapons and they didn't have it. There's been a lot of women that have defended their homes with a firearm when their husband was at work. So it's not being anti-woman. It is just looking at the reality of things. It takes somewhere around one law enforcement officer for to keep law, to keep the law, to keep to patrol and to enforce law in an area per one, somewhere around 1,000 people in a civil society. But we're not talking about a civil society when we're talking about a societal collapse scenario. We're talking about a lawless society. Now, there were over 800 officers that left their posts during Hurricane Katrina. They left their posts to go and evacuate their own families. Now, we've seen what happened with Hurricane Katrina. If you don't remember it, there was lawlessness. There was a lack of aid at the beginning. There were people shooting at the aid workers that were coming in helicopters to try and evacuate everyone. There was mass looting. There was all kinds of terrible things, and even in the stadium where everyone that was kind of left in the city that people had evacuated there for safety. Even there were things reported happening in the bathroom, and there were reports of even gangs that were infiltrating, like MS-13 and different gangs that were taking advantage of certain people, because there was, again, I imagine there's still a lack of law enforcement because these men or men and women of law enforcement were trying to get their families out. And so there probably were instances of rape. Now, we know there was instances of people breaking in and looting. So you had a lawless society, and it would have normally took more than one officer to keep the law in that situation. In fact, I had a friend who was working for a contracting service that, after he got out of Iraq and Afghanistan, deployments, he was standing down there with a Benelli shotgun, doing guard duty. I mean, you had people, he said there were people that would run right up at you, when they didn't think you were looking, trying to take what you had, trying to get into the places that you were guarding. And so that contracting company, was supplying security details for the government and FEMA. So they had to bring in a more powerful force afterwards to subdue this, this lawless society, this lawlessness that was going on in that city at that time when Katrina hit. And it may still have issues, from Katrina, even to this day. There may still be certain areas that were lost, because of the flooding that turned into a more lawless area where law enforcement, is not able to keep the peace as much. But that being said, we were hitting at a point. You're not looking at a society. I think in general we take our society for granted. You have a lot of people that are griping about the police and corruption, and I imagine there is, but a vast majority of the police are there and they help you and they uphold the law. And if you look at a lot of countries, especially third world countries, you have the corruption in the police forces is extremely bad. They work with cartels. They work, even government officials and lawmakers work for cartels. It's basically a free for all, every man for himself type situation. And that's what we're talking about, a collapse. Now, we had this happen in the Balkans. It was a collapse. And I recently watched this documentary clip of, they called it the Rambo Camaro. And you had a Danish officer that took a souped up Camaro, and the U.S. military used him to get aid to places because a lot of the aid that was being sent into the Balkans at the time wasn't making it to the people that needed to. They were being stopped, robbed. Some were killed by factions of different governments, different warlords, different militaries, different raiding groups, because there was lawlessness. And that's something to look at. And two, a big thing that happens in third world countries we see is human trafficking. A lot of times, women, young girls, children, the they are the ones that are taken advantage of in these situations. So that whole situation that came about, there is no feminism. There's no one to uphold feminism. Where you would have the protests, women peacefully protesting. Well, there would be nothing to stop them. There would be no police to stop it. You could go protest as much as you wanted, and that's not just for women. That's with any activist group you see. I mean, anybody could attack you in a lawless society, and that was kind of what we were getting at. The gentleman of Prep Talk talking about, possibly disguising yourself to get out of that dangerous area, to get to a more defendable area. If anything, it would help avoid attack. Let's say you are a female and you're a beautiful female, and you're even carrying a firearm, and you are well trained in hand-to-hand combat, and you could whoop all 6 of these men that are going to try to attack you and take advantage of you. You're going to pay a cost at some point, physically, in pain, in time. And if you can avoid this situation, we know there will be men that try to take advantage of women and their children when they're exiting a city. So all in all, it's not just going to benefit you to keep you from experiencing harm, possibly death, but also it's going to make you less of a target, all in all, because even men that are exiting the city, you have these people that have these huge bug out bags, and a lot of us counsel them to have caches outside the city. You want, just a basic bag, like a hydration bag that you can wear under a jacket, and maybe a small folding knife, a multi-tool, and get your butt up out the city. Just enough food and water to get you out of the city to your cache, and then you put the big backpack on. But even then, you're making yourself a target. It's all about not having what they want. And we'll just say, women, there's a lot of times you have what men want, whether you're carrying anything or not, because you may be beautiful, or they may, well, we're not going to say that any of you are not beautiful, but we will say that you may have what they want. And so that's the thing. And we see this process repeated time and time again in war zones, disaster areas, third world countries where the law enforcement or the military police are corrupt, and we see people taken advantage of.